Good afternoon. My name is GrahamSimon. I'm Managing Director of Delegate Select. We supply end-to-end services to event organizers, but have a particular expertise in one-to-one meetings at events. Now, today I'm going to talk about one-to-one meetings at events without boundaries. What I mean by this will hopefully become clear as my talk progresses. But I'd like to start by setting the context and ask the question, why do people attend business events? Okay. Sorry, just a little bit of lag there. Why do people attend events? Essentially, people attend events for two reasons. One is content, and the other is networking. Content. Attendees want to keep up to date with the latest news and developments in their industry. They come to hear presentations from informed speakers. They also like to hear panel discussions and hear different perspectives, possibly in a debate. They may like to come and take part in quizzes and other things that the organizer has set up for them. But the second reason they come is for networking. Now, they may want to meet their peers, or they may want to find new business partners. So these could be suppliers looking for buyers, buyers looking for suppliers. There might be companies in the same sector seeking partnerships with people who offer a complementary service. So, for instance, a product supplier might be looking for manufacturers of components or channel resellers to distribute its products internationally. The networking can take place in various forms, can take place in roundtables, workshops, but it can also take place in one-to-one meetings. Now, COVID has significantly changed the whole landscape. And both society and the event industry may never be the same afterwards. Certainly, the event industry will change permanently. But as they say in French, in my core accent, plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose, which means basically the more things change, the more they remain the same. And even once an effective vaccine is found, things won't return to the way they used to be. But ultimately, people will still want to attend events, and their primary reason for doing so will be content and networking. This is a fact of life in the event industry. A second fact of life in the event industry is that overwhelmingly, the costs of the event are borne by the suppliers. These might be event sponsors wishing to boost visibility of their brand, exhibitors at a trade show, a company launching a new product through a roadshow, or it might simply be suppliers wanting to network with buyers and be willing to pay for them. For the meetings, that is. Regardless of the event format, most business events are ultimately a marketing channel for suppliers, and the costs of their participation are generally paid for out of their marketing budgets. This is not going to change with COVID. What will change, however, is the format that events take. Pre-COVID, most events were in person. Today, almost all events are happening virtually, certainly in the UK. And once the industry starts to open up again, which possibly may be spring next year, but who knows, it is predicted that many business events will be hybrid events. I want to talk about hybrid events. Okay. Now, there's a lot of broad brushstroke talk about hybrid events, but frankly speaking, not a lot of clear definition. And most of the discussion on hybrid events has really focused on content. So I want to address the topic of hybrid events, but I want to do it in the context of our original paradigm of content and networking. Because hybrid, as it relates to content, raises very different challenges than hybrid in the context of networking. Actually, hybrid content has been happening for many years. I'd imagine nearly everyone watching today has seen a TED Talk at some time. Specialist production companies like First Sight Media and many others enable event organizers to put on a great show in front of a live audience, which is recorded and either made available to viewers on demand or broadcast simultaneously in real time to a remote audience. The technique of simultaneous broadcast over the internet, now made possible through the widespread availability of fast broadband, is called live streaming. Until COVID started spreading, neither live streaming nor recorded content after the event were a priority for most event organizers. They just expected and hoped that people would turn up. Sometimes they would record sessions that happen and put them on a website later for review. But it wasn't a major part of their event planning. Now everything has changed. Now, although my company Delegate Select can seamlessly slot links to live streamed plenary and panel sessions, as well as pre-recorded content into an event program, the actual production of these is not an area of expertise of ours. I will therefore leave further comment on this subject to the webinar video conferencing companies, of which there are no shortage nowadays. But what is an area of expertise of ours is networking at events. We have been enabling clients to do this for over 12 years. And I want to use the remainder of this presentation, one-to-one meetings at events without boundaries, to specifically address this topic. Let's start by looking at the boundaries that currently exist and see how they will be overcome going forward. I want to start by looking at the constraints that need to be removed at in-person events and then at virtual events. I'll briefly show some screenshots of solutions my company has developed to address these challenges, and then finish by looking at the further hurdles presented by hybrid events. Okay, over boundaries at in-person events. Now, you may think that there are no constraints to be overcome at in-person events because pre-COVID, you were already putting on events and doing one-to-one networking. But did your processes work exactly the way you wanted them to? Or were you simply told by your event software supplier, sorry, this is the way our software works, regardless of whether your event was a conference, a trade show, a hosted buyer event, peer-to-peer networking, meet the buyer, etc. Do any of you, for instance, let exhibitors or suppliers at a trade show propose a time when requesting a meeting with a visitor? If so, why? Surely exhibitors are going to be there for the whole duration of an event, but the visitors are going to pop in and out at unpredictable times, and they need to have complete flexibility over their own diary. Or at a host-a-buyer event, where all your buyers have been pre-qualified and you've probably paid some money for them to be there, can they book appointments directly into suppliers' diaries? If not, why not? Will any of your suppliers not want to meet any of your hosted buyers if asked for an appointment? Or at events when some suppliers are in great demand and others are less popular, but they all pay to attend your event. Do you have the ability as an organizer to collect everyone's preferences but schedule the meetings yourself in order to ensure that some minimum number of meetings per supplier is attained. You may even have contractual arrangements with your suppliers to guarantee this. You have the ability to do it in your software. The point I'm making is that there are many different formats of business event, and each may require a different networking process. You do not want to be constrained by software that lacks the required functionality, but rather you need software that can be quickly configured to suit the exact requirements of each event that you run. This applies to in-person events as much to virtual and hybrid events too. I'd like to move on now, though, to overcoming boundaries at virtual events. When you move from in-person to virtual events, you introduce two new variables, and these are rather huge ones. One is time, and the other is space. At in-person events, everyone comes together at the same location. Each day of your event has a start and a finish time. Attendees from overseas normally adjust the time on their watch on arriving in the country where the event is taking place. As an organizer, you simply publish your timetable. You schedule meetings or let attendees arrange their meetings with each other. On the day of the event, everyone will hopefully turn up at the right place at the right time with their watches synchronized. Now, let's say you decide to run a 5-day virtual event, 24 hours a day, with meetings at 30-minute intervals. You have attendees from around the world all wanting to meet each other in virtual meeting rooms on a video conferencing platform. You're going to need to determine the attendee's time zone and adjust all times displayed to the user accordingly. The alternative, of course, is to say all times are shown in London time and please do your own mathematics. But I don't think your users are going to really appreciate that. So your system has to know where they are, it has to pick up the time zone, and it has to adjust everything that is shown to them in their own time. You're also going to have to let users indicate when they're unavailable for meetings. At an in-person event, you expect people to turn up, especially if it's a conference. You think, well, you're going to be there the whole day. You're available for meetings as long as you're not attending sessions. But now with people around the world, you have to let them say, oh, I don't want meetings while I'm sleeping, or these are days where I can't make it. And also, if they're only going to end up with maybe a dozen meetings or so over a 4 or 5 day period, you want them to be able to actually put those meetings into their Outlook calendar with a link, and they just become part of their normal routine. Now, when a meeting is scheduled with another attendee at a mutually available time, your system now needs to create a link in an online meeting room on the fly in both participants' diaries. A further technical challenge, which we're facing at present, is what happens if the clocks change in participants' countries between the time the meeting is scheduled and the time the meeting takes place. I'm grateful to say that we found a solution to that, but it did require a lot of sweat and tears. But it's these small things that actually make the life of developers really quite difficult when they put together virtual events or one-to-one meetings at virtual events. Now, at an in-person event with attendees physically in the same location and same time zone, the likelihood of a person unintentionally missing a scheduled meeting to which they voluntarily agreed to attend, that's relatively low. But with two people in different parts of the world, reading their itinerary and clicking on the join meeting button in order for them to end up in the same virtual meeting room, there's a greater margin for things to go wrong, especially if the software you've chosen is not extremely well designed and thoroughly tested. Now, permit me to show you some screenshots. Bear with me. Okay, permit me to show you some screenshots of our virtual solutions in action, in which we attempt to minimize these pitfalls. When logging onto the system, the participant's location will be identified from their browser, basically. So we know where they are, or where their computer is at least, and we set their time zone accordingly. Now, they should then be able to see their diary. They should be able to expand and see the days of their diary and the times when you, the organizer, have determined that meetings can take place. They should be able to block times when they can't make it. They can even, or should even, be able to make a comment so that they remind themselves why they blocked the time. Okay, they can block out whole days, and if you program it, you can give them a button that says block out all the times when I'm asleep. Now, once they've set up their diary and they've chosen sessions they want to attend, the system knows in the background, okay, you're not available for meetings at these times. And they're now ready to start looking for meeting partners. So you've profiled all your attendees. You've able to filter your list of attendees based on their profiles, or if you've got smart matching switched on, you can even have people say, show me everybody who matches my profile, and they can get a list of people who they should be meeting. They can click on the profile of that attendee. They can see how they describe themselves. They can then request a meeting, and on requesting a meeting, they can enter a purpose for that meeting. The person at the other end will receive a notification, an email. They'll either come back to the system and look there, or in the email it'll say such and such a person from such and such a company would like to meet you at this event. And depending on how it's been set up, the person receiving the email or the person sending it, but probably in a virtual event, the person receiving the email then gets to say, okay, yes, I'll take this meeting. And the system will intelligently match their two diaries, show all the available times between them, and let them choose a time that they wish. Yeah. Bear with me a second. Okay, once people have chosen meetings and chosen which sessions they want to go to, they need to be presented with an itinerary for the event, because the hope is that they will work through their itinerary during the day and attend the sessions. Either that, or they will have downloaded as an iCal and put it into their Outlook, Apple, or Google Calendar, and they'll be able to click on the links there. But either way, they come out with a complete itinerary. Now, I don't know if you can see in this, but not only the one-to-one meetings, but if they've clicked in through the program into roundtables and various discussions, or if they've decided they want to attend the welcome address or plenary sessions or other things that the organizer has set up during the day, then they can be included in the itinerary with just a link from this site. So they don't have to see a very long Zoom link or Big Marker link or whatever system you've chosen to use to present your webinars. But it's just a simple click here to join the webinar. Just me. Now, when they come to a meeting that they've scheduled, they click on it, and in our platform, we've integrated with a solution called Whereby, as have a number of our competitors. But the reason we've integrated with Whereby is that Whereby provides an API where you can dynamically create the meetings on the fly, so you don't have to have the organizer present. And a second thing about the way the meetings are presented is that they appear in a tab on the browser. So that's really nice. People don't have to download anything, and they are straight into their meeting. Now you can see we put a frame around it, and we can know how long the meeting has been scheduled for, and we can know how many minutes remain. So people get a countdown clock. When they get to the bottom, it starts to turn red and gives them a little bit of extra time, which can be varied depending on the setup. You can have sponsors' logos appearing on there if you want. But basically, the system is very slick. The feedback we get is great. That the visibility is very clear, and it's enabled us to run some very, very successful meetings. Now, big question is, how does one gauge the effectiveness of meeting software at an event? I would suggest that the number of confirmed virtual meetings that actually occur is probably the best metric. Well, that and the number of meetings that are actually confirmed. So if your software works well, then hopefully people will be engaged and they will make a lot of meetings between them. But more than making the meetings between them, those meetings should actually happen. And the first thing to make it happen is make sure that the same link is in people's diaries. And if someone decides to reschedule a meeting, that everything gets updated. But essentially, that is the major metric. What percentage of meetings are confirmed, and what percentage of those, what number of meetings are confirmed, and what percentage of those actually take place. And we offer a very neat interface so that as an organizer, you can see in real time the meetings as they're taking place. And you can even hop into a meeting room if one of the partners doesn't turn up or whatever. So just to give you some metrics, here a couple of events. I mean, we've run many events, but one in July with 200 buyers and suppliers. They ranged around 1,800 meetings between themselves. In September, 440 buyers and suppliers arranged over 4,900 meetings amongst themselves. And this was an event happening around the world on a 24-hour clock. So these people were from all over, and you had people from Australia meeting people in the UK and everything else. We're happy to report that 95% of these successfully took place. So we were given some feedback by the event organizer. And they did include some very reassuring comments. I was amazed at the functionality of the technology used for the one-to-one meetings. No issues whatsoever. So simple, amazing. I like that the timer made the meeting wrap up so we would not be late for the next one after talking for quite a while. Fantastic platform, excellent for selection of meetings and also for scheduling of meetings. Was happy that everyone we wanted to connect with took the time to complete the profile, which made it easier to prepare for the meeting. It was so user-friendly, loved the timer, you knew exactly how long you had left, found it easy to follow up, quickly add details to my own system of the contact details and information, easy to access. And here is one that I guess warms my heart the most. Had a few of these online meeting events now. This was the best platform to date. Now, of course, nothing in life can be taken for granted, and we're having to work very hard to stay at the top of our game and on the cutting edge. Okay, so I'd like to wrap up by talking about one-to-one meetings at hybrid events. You know, if your event software can handle meetings at in-person events and virtual events, then what, you may ask, is the big deal about meetings at hybrid events, where some people can attend in person and others remotely, but everyone can meet each other? In short, when moving from virtual to hybrid, the software now needs to cater for, first, the vagaries of human nature, and second, in this climate right now, the changing rules set by politicians worldwide in their attempts to contain the spread of COVID among their citizens. Now, for event goers who want to attend an event in person and plan to stay there the whole time, or those who are not attending at all but just want to be part of the event remotely, the situation is quite clear-cut. If two people are at an event, they meet in person at an exhibitor booth or a stand, a sign table. If neither of them are there physically, they can meet virtually. If one is attending physically but the other is not, the meeting again must happen virtually. But what about people who say, okay, I'm going to attend on the morning and in person and have some meetings there, but I think I will go back to my office or I'll go home and I'll have some virtual events in the afternoon. Or today I will attend, tomorrow I will attend virtually. So they can't just be marked as an in-person or a virtual attendee. They have to now be marked as here in person, there virtually. What about people who decide to attend in person, but then wake up in the morning and think, can't be bothered. I think I'll work from home today and take my meetings virtually. Or perhaps they're very keen, they're on their way to get there, but their flight gets delayed and they get stuck at the airport. Or supposing the event is all set up and then the politicians declare a ban on travel or gatherings of more than a certain number of people just before the event. To cater for all these scenarios, your software has to be extremely flexible. It has to have the capability of managing every time slot in an attendee's timetable during the event. It needs to be able to switch a meeting from in-person to virtual or vice versa at the drop of a hat and reschedule a meeting just like that. And it needs to be able to do this all across multiple time zones. And in-person participants at hybrid events have to be prepared too. If they don't want to conduct their meetings on their mobile phones, especially if they want to share a screen, which you can't really do on a mobile phone, they will need to carry a laptop or a tablet. In fact, they might even be constrained on a tablet to share screens. But perhaps event organizers will prepare meeting areas with kiosks and Wi-Fi for virtual meetings. It's quite possible that they will have one area with tables and stands for their exhibitors and another area just with the kiosks where people who have those meetings can come along and sit down and have their meetings virtually. If you're an exhibitor at one of these events, you may decide, okay, here's my team, but some people will be on the stand physically, some people will be back in the office, and I will be able to assign some of these meetings to the office, some of them physically, probably trying to match in person with the physical and virtual with virtual, but they have the option to do it differently. But if they do that, they'll want to know in advance what sort of traffic they can expect, really, in order to just plan and know who they should have on their stand. So for Delegate Select, the changes required to pivot to virtual took us a lot of resource time. Well, it couldn't be that much because this was between March and June. We really started making the change, but it was actually a lot of effort. But the subsequent changes, shifting from virtual to hybrid, are keeping us equally busy. There's a lot of work, but we're getting that. And our hybrid solution, which will be available within the next month or so, will be very, very neat. But all of us, suppliers, organizers alike in the event industry, we're all in this together. We're all working together to try to find the best way forward and finding a way specifically of actually making money. And the bottom line in events is that it's the suppliers who pay the costs, and suppliers will pay for meetings with buyers. And we think that one-to-one meetings are going to be here to stay for quite some time. So we're all in this together. We feel like we're traversing time and space into previously uncharted territory. So welcome aboard to the Starship Enterprise. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. If you would like to run one-to-one meetings at Events Without Boundaries, please do contact us. Come to our website at delegateselect.com or send us an email or give us a call. Thank you very much indeed.